Welcome to Roadtrip WDW. I'm your host, Rebecca Schlau. This is episode 28, and I'm going to be discussing updated Disney World news. Hey gang, welcome back to Roadtrip WDW. So for the last few months, Disney World has been closed. So there really hasn't been a ton of new fun stuff going on in the parks, and we haven't had anyone traveling to the parks to give trip reports or things like that. So I figured today we could go over some of the news and happenings that's going on around Disney World. I'll start by giving a recap of everything that's happened among the Disney universe. So let's go back to January of 2020, and this was when coronavirus was really starting to spread around, and all the Disneyland parks in Asia decided to close down on January 25th of 2020. Now keep in mind, during this time, the United States parks are still open. Also, Disneyland Paris is still open. And for those of you who don't know, there are 6 Disneyland parks. So we have Disney World, of course, in Florida. We have Disneyland in California. We have a Disneyland Paris. We then have Disneyland, a Hong Kong Disneyland, we have Shanghai Disneyland, and we also have Tokyo Disneyland. So out of the 6 parks, all those Asian parks started to close on January 25th. So during that time, between January and March, the United States parks were still open and going. And we, truthfully, I'd gone to Disney World at this time. It really wasn't something I even thought about. I really didn't even think about it at all. And then in March 9th, the Disneyland in Shanghai announced that they were going to start opening up some of their dining and shopping areas. This is kind of like the Disney Springs area of Disney World. So they did a phased reopening where they had lots of precautions. They had social distancing measures, face masks. They did temperature checks, and in Asian countries, they have like a QR code where people had to get scanned in. So they had some safety measures, and they started kind of reopening that shopping dining district on March 9th. A few days later, on March 12th, that's when the United States Disneyland and Disney World parks made a statement. So Disneyland at that point decided to close down on March 14th, and Disney World in Florida would close down on March 16th. At that point, when all of the United States Disneyland and Disney World parks started closing down, they didn't tell us any idea about reopening other than the parks would just remain closed until the end of March. Now, the end of March came and went, and they ended up updating all of us to say that, Disney World is just going to be closed indefinitely. So we were all just kind of in the dark for a while about all 6 global Disneyland parks being closed, and it just seemed really stressful. And then like a little glimmer of hope started opening up back at the very beginning of May, just a few weeks ago, when it was announced that Shanghai Disneyland was going to reopen, and it reopened a week ago. So Disneyland in Shanghai, it is going. Now it's not going full force. They only have about 30% of capacity. They're using pretty extreme measures. Everyone has to wear a mask. Everyone has to get their temperature check and go through screening processes. So they're doing it differently. And there's a lot of parts of the Disney experience that are shut down, but this is a big deal. 1 out of 6, y'all. 1 out of 6 is open. Somewhere in the world, people are going to a Disneyland or Disney World park. And that, to me, that's really hopeful, because I don't know about y'all, but just this last few months, just knowing that Disney World was shut down and all the Disney parks were shut down, it just seemed so stressful and surreal, and I'm not going to say hopeless, because I knew we'd get through it, but it just seemed daunting and just, I don't know, it just hit me in the face that, Disneyland, Disney World, you can't go there. Just knowing it was closed was just really, really stressful. And it kind of helped me gauge the severity of the coronavirus, really, I started taking it seriously when Disney started taking it seriously. So, it's a big deal. Now, none of us really know. No, none of us know when Disney World's going to reopen. And we don't know if Disney World and Disneyland are going to open at the exact same dates, if there's going to be, different. All we do know now is that Disney Springs, our shopping and dining district, is reopening on May 20th, so just in a few days. And this is following the heels of the Universal City Walk reopening. That's their dining district. So it reopened last week, and Disney Springs is about to reopen in just a few days, and it's really exciting. Now, the businesses that are going to be reopening in this first phase, because Disney World, just like any other city, is going to open up in phases. It's just going to be the third-party retailers and restaurants. It's not going to be the Disney-owned restaurants opening. But however, in a week from then, I think the 27th or 28th of May, that's when Disney will actually start to open up some of the Disney shops and maybe some of the Disney restaurants. I don't really have all the details at this point, but I love that idea. It gives me a lot of hope. Now, one thing, that I'm fortunate for is that we do have some precedent. Now that Shanghai is open, now that they're doing all these different procedures, we're looking at them, and the whole world is looking at them. All the Disney parks are looking at Shanghai. Like, how are they doing it? What's working? What's not working? I'm so thankful that we already have one park that's opening that will help guide us. That will make our lives a lot easier here in the United States. However, there are different things going on over there that we don't have. Like, we don't have QR health codes that we're getting scanned. But the policies and procedures that are put in place there will definitely help us. I mean, of course they got to. Now, the speculation is, if it's just like Shanghai, then Disney World, I guess, would open, 2 months later? Just like Shanghai Disneyland opened up 2 months after they had opened up their dining district. So in that case, it would be somewhere mid to late July when it opens. We don't know though. All we know is that it's Disney World is definitely not opening up in May, and they're definitely not opening up the first week of June. All the reservations up to about June 6th, all the people arriving before June 6th, on or before June 6th, have been canceled. Those, you're not going. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with June 7th and up. Now, what's been happening, at least what happened to me, is, I kept waiting for my May trip to be canceled. I did not want to cancel that May trip at all. We were set to arrive on May 21st. And people who had April trips, each week a new batch of reservations were being canceled by Disney. It's almost like Disney was like, okay, we're not making anything. We're not saying anything. We're just, each week we're going to reassess and keep moving forward. So, I think they're really just taking it week by week. There isn't, I don't know if it'll open up in June. I really hope it opens up in July because we have a trip booked mid-July, but I'm not entirely confident. And I think if you are confident it's going to reopen in July, you may want to rethink that. But, this whole closure has made me and a lot of other people really evaluate how we look at vacations, and we've really had to adapt to the not knowing of things and the uncertainty. You really just have to adapt that your plans may change and there's just nothing you can do about it. So on one hand, that, at first that was really stressful for me because planning a Disney World vacation is, it's a lot of work. It's fun. For me, it's fun to plan a Disney World vacation, but you start planning more than 6 months in advance for something, and then all of a sudden, that's gone. All that time, all that effort, because, obviously, hey, I have a podcast. That's what we're doing right here, right? I have a podcast dedicated to Disney World trips and planning your Disney World trips. And so, it takes a lot of time and effort to just, have one of these vacations happen. And so just to not be able to do that, oh, man, it hurts, And those of us who are like, okay, we can't go to our first trip. Okay, well, let's just rebook later. I think when the coronavirus first started, none of us, I don't know, maybe we were just naive, but I don't think many of us really thought it would be even going on in May. I mean, I think a lot of us were like, well, it's going to be going on to the end of March. They're going to close the parks down a few weeks. There's no way Disney World's going to be closed longer. But here we are in May, and I've adapted to that uncertainty. I've adapted to the stress of it, that I don't know when it's going to reopen, and it's indefinite. I do think it will reopen by this fall. And some of the podcasts that I listen to, they're speculating, definitely by fall. I mean, but that's not even a fact. But in terms of when it's going to reopen, I don't know that we're going to see that July. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a better shot of July than June, and I don't even know what percentage I would give June reopening. Maybe a 30% chance at this point, and I'd say there's maybe a 50% chance in July of reopening. Some of my favorite podcasters are speculating August, maybe August 1st, something about that. But at this point, I just can't put all my eggs in any basket. I don't know. I'm starting to plan options for summer vacations if Disney World isn't open. I mean, so there's just a lot of uncertainty going on right now. But like I said, the opening of Disney Springs and the City Walk area of Universal is very helpful and encouraging. And, there's some positives to take away from this, and I'm not trying to get too deep, and I'm not trying to get political, and we're not trying to get on who's right, who's wrong. We should take this more seriously. We should lighten up about it. I'm not going there with that. I don't, regardless on where you fall in your COVID-19 stance on how serious or not serious you should take it. I do think there are a lot of positives that are going to be coming out of this in terms of those of us who love Disney World. For instance, I believe Disney World's about to be as clean as it's ever been. I firmly believe that there will be less, rotaviruses, less stomach bugs affecting people. There's hopefully be less flu spread around later on. I think that this will completely change Disney World and all the other theme parks of the world, and for better when it comes to cleanliness and hygiene and the transmission of viruses and bacteria and stuff like that. Like, I think it's going to change in a good way that way. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like in terms of all the amenities that we're used to in terms of shows and, having to pack people in on rides. Like, it's just not real clear. And then I start thinking about buffets and how they're going to be a lot cleaner too if they ever do go back to buffets at Disney World. I'm excited that they're going to, I'm totally fine with them doing more screening on people going to Disney World. Like, I love the idea of temperature checks. Like, check people's temperature. Don't let sick people into Disney World. And I know that's not a big, a big deal, but I like the idea that they're going to be taking a closer look at everyone. I like there being limited numbers of people and not overcrowding areas, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't have any problems. I will gladly go through those measures. In terms there's a big mask debate right now. Like, the mask debate is going on all the Disney World Facebook pages. A lot of people are against it. They're for it. It's going to be summer in Florida, and the idea of putting something extra on your face is just not rubbing people the right way. So, there's a lot going on about what will happen. However, Disney World isn't opening up right now. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know exactly how the phases are going to work. All we know is that Florida has told all the amusement parks to submit a plan for reopening. So at this point, Florida is pretty much closed for out-of-state visitors for tourism right now. I mean, I'm not saying that's 100%, but there's limited on what states can go to Florida and travel there. So they're just now opening up everything. And we are, Florida's not open right now, but if Disney, gets their plan submitted, I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't have a precedent for this. I don't know. The only thing I can do is look at Shanghai. And Shanghai's park opened up 2 months, almost 2 months the day after their Disney Springs opened up. Now, I kind of want to be hopeful and be like, okay, it took them 2 months to reopen after that. But since we can learn from Tokyo, maybe we can reopen sooner rather than later. And I like that. So if I had to bet, my optimistic view on when Disney World would open up would be July 5th. I think they may want to avoid July 4th. So I'd say my optimistic would be July 5th. And the, the pessimistic part of me would say that they will open up probably mid-September. Okay, so those are kind of my extremes. I think it will reopen in one of those time periods. But I'm terrible at predicting. I haven't successfully predicted anything about Disney World or Disney World news. And this isn't just coronavirus related. I've never successfully predicted some of the major announcements that Disney's going to do, or some of their, any of their attractions or news. I fail at predicting. So if you're listening to my podcast and you're bummed out by anything I'm saying, keep in mind, I have no clue and I'm terrible at predicting. We do know that Disneyland Paris has just been like, forget it. We're not even going to think about reopening until mid-July. So, even then they could reevaluate. California has not said anything. They haven't reopened anything. I don't know about California, y'all. It's kind of the wild card. Like, are they going to be more aggressive than Disneyland? Are they going to reopen at the same time? I don't know the pressures. It just seems a little different. But with the reopening of Disney Springs in Florida and the City Walk area in Florida, that gives me a lot of hope. And in the same token, I'm kind of looking at Universal Orlando as well, because Universal Orlando and Disney World, they do things around the same time. They're going to do that together, because if one of them opens earlier, then people will go to that other park. And they also have to balance between safety issues, doing the right thing, but also, getting back to work, getting their employees back to work. This has been really, really hard on the tourism industry. And, Florida, that's Florida's bread and butter. And so I can imagine that they are super itchy to get back to life as normal. But even then, when things reopen, it's not going to be normal. It's going to be different. And I don't know what that's going to look like. There's just going to be some measures in place. Now, for me personally, y'all, I don't care what they have me do. I will wear a Mickey Mouse suit. I'll do whatever they say. They want me to give a blood test, hair sample. You got it. You just tell me what to do and I'm there. I want to be safe and I want to be clean, but I was always kind of a germaphobe anyway. I always brought my little Clorox hand spray, which I can't find anymore. I'd love to get some more, but I can't get any. I was always a germaphobe before, and we always sprayed our hands down after each ride, and anytime we touched anything, we were big on sanitizing, and so I kind of, I'm going to enjoy this. However, I don't know how this affects some of the things I really want to do. Again, I really want to do the buffets. I really want my character buffets. I really want to take pictures with some of the characters, and these things are going to be limited right now, In ride vehicles, like on a roller coaster, they may not sit everybody back to back. It may be every other time, or just groups of families going together. I don't know what the monorail is going to look like. Like maybe one party at a time in each cabin. Who knows? They haven't told us. And y'all, I try to call. This next trip, what we had planned and what we still have planned, we have we're going to stay at Disney's Polynesian Resort. And we have a fancy schmancy club level room. However, some of the perks of club level we're not sure about. Club level rooms have a club level lounge where you can get food. It's kind of just buffet style, pick and grab what you want here and there. But who knows what's going to happen there. We also don't know when club level concierge service will end up taking calls. They no longer take calls. You can email them, but you're not going to get a response. So it's a bit frustrating to know what sort of procedures are going to happen. Also, now keep in mind, if you have tickets to Disney, they're not going to they're not going to screw you over. Disney World's going to honor. They're going to do the right things when it comes to honoring tickets and things like that. So if you already had tickets or a vacation booked, don't worry. Disney will make it right in terms of rebooking your experience, and they're not going to take your money and run or anything like that. However, those people who rebooked their vacations earlier, so those who were affected by the closures in March and April and May, if you would have gone ahead and rebooked at a later time, you had the ability to book this free dining offer that they offered, kind of recovery. I decided to rebook our trip, and I didn't really want to, but the numbers all of a sudden kind of made sense, which I'll go over at a different time. But the numbers made sense, so I rebooked it under the free dining offer. However, a few days later, they closed up shop for that, and they were like, no more. We're not offering that anymore. So there's a lot of people who are waiting just to get their trip bumped by Disney itself, and they waited too late. Disney stopped offering it. Then Disney was like, you know what? We're not even going to take any more reservations until July and later. And so, who knows if that means that Disney's even going to reopen. Some people think maybe it's crowd control. Some people think, well, it's probably just going to be closed. Other positive news, I was just listening to the Disney Dish podcast, which usually gets released every Monday. They record maybe on Sundays or something. The Disney Dish podcast with Lynn Testa. They mentioned that Disney is still moving forward with some patents, some special patents, which are probably going to go to that cool Star Wars hotel, which I guess is still in the works. So that's kind of positive, because that was a huge, that's a huge project. Them creating a Star Wars themed hotel. That was an expansive project, and I guess it's going ahead. Some of the other projects may be, put on hold because Disney hasn't made a lot of money. In fact, Disney has lost quite a bit of money since, everything shut down. So I thought that was kind of positive to know that they're moving forward with some patents, and they're having I don't know if they're having contract or construction people go back and take a look at surveyors. I can't remember what Disney Dish said, but it's worth going to get a good update. I love listening to the Disney Dish podcast on Mondays because I really feel like the two hosts, they have a lot of insider information, y'all. They really do. And I love listening to them, and they're so smart. Lynn Testa, I'm a big fan. He does the touring plan. I mean, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the touring plans website, but it's also something really cool to check out. It uses just like statistics and like science to help you plan your Disney World vacation, like in terms of, okay, so wait times are likely going to be this many minutes, even though it's posted this time or this time of day and this day of the year. It's, it's very strategic, and they used a lot of actual raw data, and they collected it, scientists in the field, y'all. So Lynn Testa has got his stake into, Disney World. He's kind of a big deal. I love him. And then his co-host for the Disney Dish, with Jim Hill. And Jim Hill is very knowledgeable about everything Disney World, and he seems to know a lot of people, and they know things that I wouldn't know. During my Disney, I have the Disney World blues. There's no doubt about it. I'm still listening to my favorite people over at Capture the Magic and Main Street Magic podcasts. Those guys are my friends now. Like, I know them. I feel comfortable, talking to them, friendly. I mean, it's all through online, and I've only met them once or twice. So, but, I have a great time listening to their shows. It kind of helps fill the gap. Those shows, the Capture the Magic shows and the Main Street Magic shows, kind of fill in the gaps throughout the week. I love listening to that. I'm also listening to a lot of WDW Prep to Go. I've recently joined kind of the Patreon group for Shannon Albert's website, the WDW Prep to Go. And I love the extra content. I think it's like $5 a month, but it's worth it for me, for Disney World lover. I'm also going back to Capture the Magic community. I'm also still a member of their Club 32, which is kind of their Patreon. It's sort of group where you pay a little bit I think it's like $70 a year, something like that. And you get a lot of perks, a lot of extra content. And that really helps kind of scratch the itch. It helps me, we're all together. We're all planning trips. We don't know that these trips are going to happen. We're all dealing with that uncertainty. And it just gives me just a little bit of Disney magic to help me on my way. I'm also on just like the Facebook groups, like the Disney Foodies Facebook group. I just like hearing people plan their vacations, because despite everything being closed, future vacations are still going to happen, y'all. It's not over. I mean, it will end. Disney World's still going to reopen. And so I love it. I love it when people are like, okay, I'm planning, to go to this restaurant next January. Where should I go? No mention of coronavirus. No mention of anything bad. Just people having a normal conversation about different restaurants in Disney World. And that, y'all, that gives me, just reminds me that it's going to be over. And at one point, things will reopen. It may not be completely normal, but at some point, we will be able to do things outside of our house again. I don't know about y'all, but I haven't been doing much. And my kids have been stuck with me. And it's getting old. And I'm getting quarantine fatigue. And I think that's, that's making all sorts of different vacation options look very appealing to me. I mean, I just want to get out. I mean, I want to go to Disney World, but if I can't do Disney World, I'll just take whatever I can get, y'all. Give me something. So, not a lot of news going on. I'm excited to see how things go in the next few weeks with Disney Springs reopening, and hopefully I'll report back some experiences that I've kind of gathered. Of course, all of my information gathering will be just from Facebook, watching the news, my Facebook groups, my other podcasters. So I'll try to, get that information in a few weeks and tell y'all what I found out. In the meantime, please connect with me. Please catch me on Facebook at Roadtrip WDW. You could email me at my roadtripwdw@gmail.com email address, but I prefer Facebook. I would love for you to rate this podcast. Like if you feel, especially positive, rate it, give it a good review on iTunes, because if you do rate me, it does help other people looking for Disney World trips and advice and stuff. It helps them pull up this itty bitty baby podcast, because y'all, I'm still a small fry and it's just a hobby. So do that if you can. Give me a rating and review, and holler at me if you need me. All right, that's gonna do it, road trippers. See you real soon.